Our final segment of this episode features Tim Brady, co-owner of Brady's Distillery, which you'll read all about in our May June issue. Today we're chatting about the fascinating world of craft spirits, prohibition history, and the art of distillation with Tim, whose passion for creating unique libations has made Brady's a beloved destination for locals and visitors alike. Let's raise a glass and dive into the spirits of Roanoke with Tim Brady. Hi.
Hey, Liz, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for being on here. We're so pleased. I can't wait to learn more about it. My husband is a whiskey drinker, so, I feel like this is a great segment for him to learn a whole lot about. So.
Oh, yeah, great. I can't wait to talk about it.
So let's learn about Brady's Distillery to begin with, because this was co-opened by you and your brothers, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
I have two younger brothers, Brian and Andy. I'm the oldest of the three. And
the more responsible one, maybe?
Sometimes. Sometimes. Depends on what we're getting into. No, it was something that we had talked about doing for a long time. Actually, and I was in the military, I'd retired, and I was going to do brewery. I was going to do a beer brewery and whatnot. And when I left Roanoke back in 2001, I think there was 2 breweries maybe.
Oh yeah, did you come back and like, whoa?
Yeah, well, it was Brian and Andy both that said, hey, I would pump the brakes on a brewery.
A lot of exciting breweries around here.
Yeah, and they're all doing great things,
Yeah.
right? So no need to recreate that and try to jump into that space. So we kind of sat down one day and said, well, the three of us needed to do something together. Brian and Andy have both individually been pretty successful in the Roanoke Valley running businesses on their own. And we knew we wanted to do something, 3 of us. So we sat down one day and said, hey, what about that whiskey you guys allegedly, and we say allegedly, made years ago?
In quotation marks, obviously.
Correct, yeah. It was like, may or may not have actually made something.
Right.
And what about that stuff you made, And Brian and Andy are both says, well, it's fantastic. So we said, well, what about the world of distilling? What does that look like? So, you peel back that onion a little bit and you realize that brewing beer and distilling spirits are eerily similar in many respects. And when it comes down to it, the science is relatively the same. And while you don't get to enjoy something immediately, the art of spirits, you can have a young spirit. It's the maturation process, right? So we decided that's what we wanted to do. And as we delved a little deeper into that, we realized that Roanoke, there wasn't a distillery in Roanoke.
Right.
There hadn't been one in over 100 years.
Right.
And so we knew that was going to catch on.
Yeah, you had something there.
Correct, yeah. And we knew once we announced that's the direction we wanted to go. And I think for the most part, it's been very well received.
I love that you made this a family event, like that you really brought you and your family came together to do this. I mean, it's funny, like you guys didn't want to kill each other over the entire. I mean, this is a big process, opening a business and then making your own product too.
That's right. A lot of people say that. A lot of people say, it's one thing to go into business with family. It's another thing to get along in doing that. And that's one thing that between Brian, myself, and Andrew, we pride ourselves in is, I guess we just know our lanes. Yeah. We stay in them. And for the most part, when there's big decisions that need to be made, we all 3 get together and we don't leave the room until we've come up with a decision. For the most part, we each have the autonomy to do as we want with the company. I'm more on the ops side of the house, so I deal with our distiller, our head distiller, Matt. And we've got him in a good place. We sort of, I steer that direction. Brian handles a lot of the stuff that I don't want to deal with.
Yeah, it's good you balance each other out.
That's right, and that he's very good at, right? So he handles the budget, and he handles the taxes, he handles all of the federal government stuff, right?
That's really important too, because obviously Virginia ABC and all the rules that come around. I mean, you guys have a lot of little things to really keep in mind when you're operating.
The state of Virginia the ABC is very nuanced in that regard. Lot of attention to detail on things. Everything we do is under a microscope, and that's because we're under control state, and a lot of states are following the same path. The government wants to be involved because there's tax money, there's taxes to be made, and if the government doesn't obviously have an opportunity to collect, then they figure out a way to pry themselves in. And so with that, we obviously we be very cautious what we do, very transparent. We don't try to mislead the consumer, and that's another thing that I'm sure we'll talk about. But everything we do, we try and be above board with. Because we get audited all the time.
Right. Somebody's always looking over your shoulder.
All the time. And thankfully, knock on wood, every audit, every visit has been a positive experience. We haven't had any takeaways where we have to tidy things up.
Yeah. You're doing all the right things already.
We seem to be doing everything.
Excellent.
And the reception has been great. Everyone likes what we have.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to shake anything up at this point.
Well, that's pretty good. So we're going to talk about the audience reception because I mean, everybody I talk to is always like, man, I can't wait to go back to Brady's. Like I've been there. It's just a lot of fun. And so, but thinking about, Franklin County has this history as the moonshine capital of the world. And so our prohibition history in this region is a little questionable sometimes since we were still running some things down the road. And so I'm curious about, incorporating that regional history that we all kind of know. Do you find a way to incorporate that into Brady's Distillery?
Absolutely. And we tried to, I think there's a big education piece for a lot of people. They're naturally curious about the Prohibition era.
Yeah.
When there was...
It's very glamorous.
It is.
Mysterious.
And you see the mobbish, gangsterish type of thing. When you think Prohibition, you think people running liquor and somebody was involved, typically with a handgun somewhere, that was, and the police were chasing them.
Yeah.
Right. It's sort of what we've come to know. And a lot of that's true. And the interesting thing about Brady's and when we decided to open was as we started to do that research and really peel it back and find out what the history was in especially in the Roanoke City and Roanoke Valley, there was a gentleman by the name of Casper, and his last name was Casper, and he was the last active federally recognized distiller in Roanoke City. And 1909 was the last.
Wow.
His building burned down in 1909. He decided I'm not going to invest any more money in this project. But he really revolutionized the distribution of alcohol legally as early as the early 1900s. I mean, he was the Sears Roebuck he was shipping across state lines. He was, horse and buggy kind of thing. He was getting liquor where it needed to be in basically a catalog. And people would order it and he would ship it. And that was happening here, right here in
that's
Roanoke
pretty
City.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And what's even more interesting about it is when we decided the location of the distillery, we realized that John Casper, I think was his name, had only been like a mile from where we were operating.
Wow.
Yeah, and so...
Well, that's like meant to be.
It is. It was really cool. It was quite fortuitous that we chose that location, unbeknownst to us, obviously, with Casper. But we tell that story a lot to people because they don't realize that there is a deep-rooted history here, dating pre-Prohibition and even post-Prohibition. And after Prohibition, nothing really ever came back to Roanoke, even after 1909 and then leading up to Prohibition and then after. So when we saw that as an opportunity, I mean, the city, we were surprised, and we're still surprised. It's 2024, and we're still the only ones in Roanoke, and we opened in 2020.
You better knock on some wood. I mean, I don't know. You're leading the charge, so that's what's important here.
So, and we've had people come up to us and ask, hey, we're thinking about getting into the business, and it's an open book for us.
Yeah.
Another distillery would be great for us.
Yeah.
It would be great, just like another brewery is great for another brewery.
I love that.
It helps the, I think, the people that enjoy that, if you're a beer brewer or you're a beer connoisseur, the idea is that you want to try different things.
Yeah.
But that helps grow the industry. And so we always tell people, hey, if you're interested in doing it, we'll certainly tell you everything not to do. We've figured all that out already.
Yeah. They probably take one look at all that you do and they're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. Well, some people do. People do. We've had people come in and look and they're overwhelmed.
Sure.
And we're thinking, wow, this is a nano distillery, really, in terms of size.
Right.
Imagine going into a full-scale system and setup. But we're doing very good. We're very, very happy with our production levels. And like you mentioned, we've got a loyal fan base, and people like to have a place to come. Back to just being a Brady, the three of us, we're very family-oriented. And so we wanted to make sure that the environment that we created also was welcoming to kids as well.
Just like a brewery.
Exactly.
I mean,
Come out and bring your dog, and we're very dog friendly and whatnot. We have live music and things like that. So it was very well welcomed when we decided to do it, and it's we've got some big plans for this year too. I can't reveal those just yet.
Well, without revealing too much, I do want to know, because you guys, obviously there are not, you just talked about there aren't really craft spirit distributors in the area, but as far as the experiences you're offering to your visitors, what are you doing that's kind of setting you apart, even from the breweries? If I don't feel like a beer, golly, I should go get a little spirit.
Yeah. So I'll start with kind of what we are allowed to do, and then I'll kind of explain kind of where we've arrived at. So the ABC says that we are allowed to operate a tasting room. They don't call them those. Of course, we branded it as a tasting room. It's basically an opportunity for any enthusiast or anyone that's curious to come into our distillery or any Virginia distillery and sample. any of the spirits that they offer. You don't have to charge for it. You can offer that for free. It's one of the only things in the state liquor-wise that you can give away. There's no obligation to purchase. But again, it comes in size amounts, right? The ABC says, well, you can only give so much. And that amount is factored in, and a lot of people can't understand that when we say that this is the amount, and you're going to be shocked. We're only legally allowed to serve 3 ounces per person per day in our tasting room. So what we are allowed to do, though, is get creative with those tastings. So what has allowed us to do is, and I want to throw a shout out to our staff real quick. They are tremendous. Our manager, Amy, she's running the place day in and day out. We've given them the autonomy to make decisions where say, hey, if you've got an idea for a cocktail, if you've got a fancy way to dress something up, let's do it. And that's what we're able to do.
Cool.
And with that, we've come up with some really great libations with the cocktails that we make. And some fan favorites. We introduced some new seasonal drinks, but we've got a couple that they're just anchored in the distillery.
Sure. Who doesn't love an old fashioned?
Exactly.
That's what they go get every time.
Old fashioned is always a good one. A Manhattan is another one.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get creative with these drinks. But so the 3 ounces is sort of where we're pigeonholed, right? The ABC says you can only serve this as much. And that's largely because the ABC wants to make sure, even with breweries, they want to make sure that people aren't being overserved. We're being responsible and whatnot. But 3 ounces, if they're listening right now, I'd like to tell them that that's a little ridiculous. Like we can 3 ounces, we can up that a little bit. But and their patrons want it too. They're like, hey, I get a drink or two, and then I leave because there's nothing else. And that kind of maybe that was a teaser as to what might be coming in this year. But yeah, so we just get creative with our cocktails, and like I mentioned, our staff they're phenomenal. We let them to just run with it. If there's something unique or creative, and they want to make a suggestion that we make it, or like I say, we have a lot of regulars that come in and say, hey, this place we were down in Nassau or somewhere in the Virgin Islands, and we had this drink made with rum, and you guys have yeah, you know what?
I love that.
Maybe we'll try that.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we've got this painkiller on the menu that's enduring. It's phenomenal.
I love that you do that though, because you're allowing not just your guests but also your staff to sort of be invested in what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And I love that they are able to come to you with ideas and yeah, let's try it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, the one thing that's unique about our business model with the 3 of us is that we tend to stay out of the way of that kind of thing because we don't want to stymie growth and development, and we have our owner moments where we say, okay,
as you do,
we're going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Like we need to focus on this, but that doesn't happen often, and that's because our staff has really instilled that trust. You know what I mean, where we can come to them and say, hey, let's try this. Yeah, we got it. We'll knock it out. And they really do. And I think just if you Google us, just the reviews alone are usually all about staff. And I think that's critical. I mean, great that we have drinks that people come back and drink. But if you had mediocre staff and great drinks, right, I'm going to go somewhere else and get a great drink.
They're part of the experience. And
Exactly.
you having a great experience,
exactly.
want you to come back.
And that's part of it too. Everything we do is handcrafted. Even in the tasting room when they're making drinks, so we're very proud of all that.
Yeah. I also found it fascinating. So again, we're talking about the article in our May-June issue. And so in this craft beer ecosystem, you're actually loaning out used barrels to local breweries.
That's right.
And how did that come about? Like what made you guys think this is another way to kind of collaborate and give back to people who might need this sort of thing?
Yeah. So, mentioned brewing beer, and so I've personally had a barrel before that I brewed beer, and I put something out. I mean, it was a porter or a stout or something like that, and let it ride for 6 months or so, and it turned out really good. And so fast forward, we own a distillery, and I'm in a brewers guild, Roanoke Brewers Guild, and talking with some of the proprietors of some of the breweries in Roanoke that are members of the guild. I said, hey, what would it look like for you guys to get a whiskey barrel from me and put something in it? And it was funny because you could tell they were thinking that already.
Really?
And they were just waiting, maybe.
Please offer.
Or, the suggestion came up that maybe we do a collaboration. We want to do something local. And not only do the breweries and us as a distillery, not only do we love that. We love that collaboration. But the consumer, the patron, they see that. And what it's doing is it's melding for them two things that maybe we only offer one of, but another the brewery offers the other half, right? And we realized that a long time ago that we have spirits. not always are you going to have, like, as your significant other, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, are they going to enjoy what you're enjoying? You might want a bourbon straight, and they're just like, well, I'm just here because you're here. Right? Now you're on their time.
I might be that person who's like, I'm here for the ride.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to talk to the staff and
That's
hang
right.
out with them for a little bit.
Just, you got a cool space, I'll
Yeah,
hang out.
absolutely.
But the collaboration has really blown up for us. I think at this point, we've probably got 10 barrels out right now.
Wow.
At least 7 of them have something in them. We've had Twin Creeks, we've had Big Lick, Old Salem, all the breweries and the big ones have come around and got 2 or 3 barrels with something in it.
Yeah.
And what's really unique about when we do this collaboration is they love the social media fodder that comes along with it. They love advertising and touting that they've got a distillery barrel from a local distillery, and we love saying, hey, we've got a beer that's sitting in one of our barrels. And what we always do is they'll call us and say, hey, Friday we're tapping. We'd like you down there. If you can come down, that'd be great.
Yeah, you got to be part of the show.
Right.
Obviously.
And we love that. We love that. It is really a great thing.
I love that there's no you would think as a consumer that there might be competition there, but you've already stated the fact that another distillery, another brewery, that's only going to rise everybody up. And I love that you guys are collaborating, because we talk about this all the time on the podcast, but I love the organizations or programs or businesses that are reaching out to others and really making it about the community as opposed to just their own business siloing themselves away.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
If you operate in sort of that vacuum mindset, you plateau eventually.
Right. And so side note, are you and your brothers from Roanoke? Are you from the area?
We're all natives.
So you grew up here. I mean, it must be interesting to look back and think, I might not necessarily have seen my path head this way or seen Roanoke grow, expected Roanoke to grow, but that must be pretty cool to look at it now and be like, I have such a big hand in this. How cool.
It really is. And to that point, I grew up here, graduated high school here. And then I moved away. I joined the military in early 2001 and didn't come back until 2021. And a lot had changed. I came back into town to visit family and on leave and things like that. But I didn't get to see...
Right. Living here is different than visiting.
The changes that occurred over the time. And that kind of goes back to the brewery point when Brian and Andy said, hey, you can do what you want. That's great, but... maybe not a brewery.
Yeah. I love that they were able to offer, like, look, we've been living here a little while and we know what you want to do, and we know actually the niche that'll better fit. So that's great.
Hey, the scene blew up while you were gone, by the way.
Yeah.
So
That's hysterical. Yeah. And thinking about, we're also talking about challenges. We've already mentioned navigating regulations. There's labeling and approval procedures, all these little steps that, we've barely scratched the surface of all the things that you have to check a box off of. But thinking about some of those challenges, how might they impact the release of new products? You have a coffee-infused whiskey that sounds absolutely delicious and dangerous all at the same time.
It is all of those things.
When it comes to that kind of release, that kind of fun, wonderful, big thing to do, like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, it should be a lot easier.
Yeah.
But thankfully, we've aligned ourselves with some folks that have navigated those waters, and they are very patient about it. But they say, like, it is a process. You're dealing with the federal government at the first level, and then the ABC at the second level. And as I mentioned before, they want to know everything that you're doing. And the biggest thing for the federal government is they just want to make sure you're not misleading a consumer. Right. Whatever you're putting into your body, they want to know that you're being upfront and honest about it. And while we aren't required to put all of the nutritional facts, because there's no calories really. I mean, there's nothing bourbon, you know what I mean? It's so nutritional wise, you're not getting any nutritional value. But, when they look at it, they're like, okay, well, that's fine. But you say that you're making a coffee whiskey. What kind of coffee? Where did you get it? What's the origin of the coffee?
Wow.
Oh, yeah. That's why we haven't released it yet. Yeah. So
very excited to try it when you do. But wow.
Andy visited, and he'll correct me later when he hears this if I was wrong. But I want to say it was one of the national parks. It was either Yosemite. And in fact, I think it was Yosemite. He got his hands on some huckleberry coffee, and he raved about it. And when we tried it, we liked it a lot. And he says, I'm going to reach out to them and see if we can't get some huckleberry coffee and do like a collaboration again. Trying to do that local thing, local really, but trying to do that thing. And so we were able to get a bunch of huckleberry coffee. Well, we made all of this whiskey and infused it. We didn't make coffee and pour it in it. I mean, it was coffee bean
I'm no
infused.
aficionado, but even I figured that wasn't
Right.
you put it together.
Yeah, and so you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, so how much coffee did you put in it?
Stir it in.
Well, we didn't brew the coffee, but so you steeped it over the grinds and whatnot, and over the beans, and anyway, so we've got them all bottled, and they look great. But we submitted for it, and it's just question after question after question. Like, okay, we get it. You're making a coffee infused whiskey. I'm like, I can show you 100 that exist.
Yeah. That's true.
Did
That's
they
a good
go
point.
through the same process?
And I guess they did, but man.
So anyway, they've kind of balked a little bit at us with that. And again, it's nothing. We're being transparent.
Yeah.
We have whiskey we made, and
we want to give it to you.
Huckleberry coffee, right?
We want to sell it.
So, but to your question, everything from the label design to what it says, to all of those things have to be submitted. And it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see some of these companies out there that every season they're turning out a new product with some fancy label. Well, those are the big guys, and they probably have a 9-story building and 3 floors,
right? 400 employees, and,
3 floors of that are dedicated to labels, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So it is what it is, and we just have to go through that process just the same as they do. There's no exemption for being a big company versus a small. But we submit it all, and all of our whiskeys are all branded Accomplice, and then we have our vodka, our rum, our gin, and our rye, and all of those for the most part went fairly easy. The bourbon was the most arduous because bourbon is such a controlled spirit. Huh. The United States is the only country that can make bourbon, and just like Mexico, tequila is the only thing you can make it in the United States, but it's agave.
I believe one of the quotes we have in the article is talking about, we used a pull quote on here. Mexico has tequila, Scotland has scotch, the U.S. has bourbon.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And other countries do the same thing. They make it the same way.
Yeah.
They mature it the same way. They're just not, and it's weird. It's like a consortium or something like that says, no, you can't call that. You're in Japan. You can't call that bourbon. And we're the watchdogs kind of thing. And we won't make Scotch whiskey. We won't do different things here. We've got bourbon.
Yeah.
So.
Got lots of bourbon. Excellent. Well, it's so funny because I don't think many people realize just the steps and the hoops that you have to jump through. Like, they're not just enjoying that one glass of bourbon. They're enjoying the whole process that you've had to go through to enjoy that glass of bourbon.
Yeah. And bourbon is obviously it's the fanciful of all. It's the hardest I say that it's not hard to make, but the processes that you have to stay within certain guidelines, legally calling it bourbon. And, so it ends up becoming it's a fan favorite, obviously. But to your point, it does have a bit more of the strings attached that you have to kind of like navigate through. If you want to just make corn whiskey, you can make it. It's corn and you're mashing it in and you're going to distill it, and you don't have to put age statements or anything on it.
Well, that's the old prohibition hardcore
right.
rule right there.
So, but yeah, it's just funny how all those little nuanced rules come out of the woodwork. You've got to be well versed, because there's always somebody that will let you know when you're wrong.
Well, that goes across all lifestyles and industries, I suppose. So let's talk about the distillery itself, though, because I want to talk about when you walk into your tasting room. Like, what's the first thing that you really want someone to notice before they even get up to order a drink?
We are very fortunate that we have the building we have, I think. So a little backstory in the distillery: Brian and Andy were already running a business out of where we are now, the current distillery. And Brian and Andy have an indoor air quality company that they run in Roanoke Green Home Solutions. A little shout out to Green Home Solutions.
Green Home Solutions, yeah.
So they were running the business there. They were using the distillery side at the time for storage of all of your equipment and whatnot. And then the other side, which is our tasting room, was suited for offices. And so we knew at this point, Green Home was moving out. We knew that we were going to use the distillery side for the distillation. We were going to put barrels in there and we were going to fill it up. And we were really, really searching hard for a location downtown. Yeah. We wanted to have a foot trafficked location where anyone staying downtown
good old walkable
could walk right in and walk right out kind of thing. We were looking downtown and we just weren't having any luck. And we had a lot of folks reach out to us and say, we got some great spots. We think you do well, But it's location.
Yeah, it's the ghost of Casper pushing you in a direction.
That's right. Happening. And what we were trying to do is we were trying to be in a location that made sense. We couldn't be off the beaten path. We weren't trying to make a speakeasy. We were trying
a hidden door and
we talked about it now, right? We're established and we've talked about it. But at the time we were like, no, it needs to be where the most of the foot traffic
flashing
is,
lights right here in front of you.
So we were looking. And one day, I think we're all three sitting in the current tasting room on the floor. We had nothing in there. There was no furniture, nothing. We're just sitting on the floor. And I looked around and I said, guys, what about this building? I mean, it's very eclectic. We've got exposed brick, hardwood floors. There's an elevator in here.
All the downtown charm you need.
I mean, exactly, right? And so, and Brian and Andy are looking around, and Andy was on board. And Brian said, I just don't know about this building. I said, well, I think this could be it. Fast forward to today, and that's one of the first things people notice when they walk in is, wow, this is a really cool building.
Yeah.
Like all of it is exposed. There's hardly any new construction. Mm-hmm. So it looks original.
Yeah.
And the history of the building is unique. We had a customer come in. We were always asking people, what's the history of this tasting room? What's the origin? Of course we got tax maps and things like that. We could see when it was built.
You want the full story.
Exactly. We never really knew what was going on here. And lo and behold, one day, this lady walks in, older lady walks in, and she says, I used to work here. And we're looking at her, and everything stopped. And we're like, please have a seat. Yeah.
Tell us everything you know.
What would you like to tell us? And it was an amazing story. She told us about how she was single-handedly moving 55 pound or 55 gallon drums of oil.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a PMI, I want to say maybe is who it was at some point, but they were getting oil and fuel blivets in. And anyway, it was a working truck dock.
Wow.
And she went through the whole history of it, and it was really cool. And at some point, they processed apple cider vinegar there. So there's a lot of things that happened in that building, and we're thinking that this might be the last thing that happens there is the distillery.
Yeah, I love that so much because you're also incorporating the history to it, of the building itself. How great that you didn't knock down walls and put up, all the new paint and make it characterless, right?
Yeah, it's all we did was built a bar.
Yeah,
I mean,
you got off easy then, I guess.
Yeah, we built a bar. We built the bar, and as they say, build it and they will come. So we built the bar, and but to your question, really, we dressed up the outside. It needed a lot of work. It was in a derelict little corner of Plantation Road, so much so that the city hadn't paved the road, and grass was growing up on it, and so so we really took it and turned it into something that most people come by and say, wow, it's dressed up this. Our neighbors love us.
Yeah, I bet they do. Yeah,
their building values have gone up since we moved.
Yeah, and they have a great next door neighbor. They can just go get a drink. I'd love that too. That's smart
I think
thinking.
My neighbor was joking, but I'm a bit. I think he was serious that he's actually tunneling under the road to the distillery somewhere. He joked about it one day, but I think he's serious. I think he just might be the kind of guy that would do that.
Yeah, you see a shovel in the backyard, and maybe you'll have an idea. Well, and let's talk about the tasting experience. If I'm coming in and let's be gentle with me. I know nothing about hard liquor. So if I'm going to come in and do a typical tasting experience at Brady's, what does that look like for me?
Yeah.
What are you going to start me off with, kind of work my way? Again, I've got to taste only very little certain things. So.
Sure. Well, we've got it curated to where you can come in and get one of all of the spirits that we have and just small amounts.
Cool.
And the beauty of that is we're able from pretty much A to Z walk you through each spirit and why we start with one or the other and how we end up on one. And most people, some people will say things like, well, I don't want to try the vodka. Can I just get an extra bourbon or something? Sure, we can curate this any way you want it. But what we typically do for folks is I like to start with the dark liquors, right? So we'll start with maybe the rye. It's a little bit sweeter, and then it's got a sweet note to it with a sharp bite, and then maybe the corn, our Solera whiskey, and then the bourbon. And that finishes out the palate. And then we'll transition into the clear spirits from there.
Really? So the clear is after the dark spirits?
I'd like to do that just because the bourbon, all of our dark liquors are 94 proof. And so your tongue, your palate is sort of shocked at this point, ready for something else. And if I tried to give you something higher proof, then it might just be a wash to the wayside, right?
Okay.
So instead, almost like, and we'll give you little cups of water, obviously, in between. But like, okay, take a few minutes, cleanse your palate, and now we're going to go into the clear spirits, right? And I'll start with the vodka. It's easy. It's grain neutral. And then I'll go into either the rum or the gin, but I like to finish with the gin because the gin is such a unique spirit and a unique flavor that it can dominate the rest of your palate. So if you started with the gin and then you went to the vodka and then maybe the rum, you wouldn't taste any of those.
Huh, how interesting.
So I get the palate cleansed with the vodka and then go right into the rum. And then sometimes we'll do a little bit more vodka just to flesh out that rum because it's sweet. Yeah. And then we'll finish it off with the gin.
I love vodka, love rum. Gin gives me flashbacks to college in terrible ways. So, but the vodka and rum, like, sign me up. I'm all on board.
You must have gone to the same college from a lot of people that I hear about gin and college experiences.
Gin is that's a specific flavor.
I'll tell you this right now, and I'll tell this to anybody that says it, because we get a lot of people that tell us they don't like gin. They'll say, I'll pass on the gin.
Yeah.
And they are almost 100% of the time surprised that they like it.
Yeah.
When they try our gin.
See, I smell a gin and tonic and like swoon from like childhood of family members drinking it. So like I find that I'll give it a
Vodka and Jello did that for me.
Yeah, that'll do it too. But I love this. I love the tasting. I love that you get to try the different ones. I mean, because that's pretty important for somebody who doesn't have the experience or the expertise. Do you ever get customers who like they're experts in spirits and they maybe want to teach you a little something about what they know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's always somebody else that would like to impart their wisdom on you.
Sure.
Right. No matter what you're doing in life. Funny story. Andy just happened to be at the distillery one day, and he likes to get behind the bar and he likes to talk about our spirits as well. And we had, I don't think it was a wedding maybe that was happening in Roanoke. I think the groom, his bride was from Roanoke. Mm-hmm. So they were coming here and they were going to have their wedding and whatnot. And they were all bourbon fans, but they're all from Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
So
pretty.
We barely got a word in, if you get what I'm saying. So first thing right off the bat was, well, I don't see how you guys really call this bourbon because, it's not made in Kentucky.
Right. Naturally.
And there's Andy just standing. I mean, he was primed. It was like he knew it was coming
He knew it was coming.
Yeah. And he says, well, actually, fellas, the first active distillation of American whiskey occurred in the state of Virginia before Kentucky was even a state. And so once he set that bar, it was like kind of just, okay, what else do you got?
I'm very proud of him. That's such a great fact too. Also, shout out to Virginia for
absolutely
being
George
on
Washington.
The
curve. The colonists. We're talking American whiskey came from the state of Virginia.
Yeah,
very first distillation occurred here.
Virginia's the best state.
Yep.
How do you maybe explain to people who have such expertise in it or have a background or, experienced drinking spirits like that? What sets your spirits apart from all the other bourbon or all the other vodka that they're going to drink or have later on?
Yeah, so great question. If you made whiskey in Virginia, in Roanoke, and you did the exact same thing in, let's say, Clearwater, Florida, mm-hmm. and you let it rest for 4 years or maybe just 6 months, they're going to taste night and day different. To an average consumer, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to know the difference.
Yeah. But to put people like a sommelier or those people that have that refined palate, they'll say, okay, this is different. The water is different here. What's going on? Well, we're very fortunate at the distillery to be on the spring. So we have crystal spring water that feeds the distillery. And obviously, as you know, it's some of the best in the country. And so where you make your spirit really is the only thing that separates you. Where you rick your barrels also. That's why the rolling hills of Kentucky and northern Tennessee is where you'll see a lot of those rick houses, because it's a climate that has been, I guess they figured out at some point that the barrels, when they mature in those environments, they just do well. Something magical happens in a barrel at around the 3-year mark. So, but again, how you make your whiskeys, you can always refine your processes. You can always discover efficiencies and make things better. But at the end of the day, you're gonna have people that are gonna have the same exact thing, because there's only so many ways to make something. You're gonna have the same exact thing, and all that's going to be different is the geography, right? The location that it was made. And I'll say that because we have some folks down in this industry. You befriend a lot of distilleries. You meet a lot of people because, like I said, we're an open book.
Yeah.
Anybody is willing to share and impart their knowledge. And down south, especially in the Florida area, you've got folks down there, and they don't have the same environments in Kentucky and Tennessee to mature barrels. So their processes are a lot different. Sometimes they use climate-controlled buildings because they have to.
Right.
The barrels never cool.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process is the contraction and expansion in the hot and cold. That's where the oak is doing something. And that's where it's really good in Tennessee and Kentucky. We're very fortunate here that we're a four-season state, and we also get those climates. But again, you can make the same thing, the same recipe, and it's going to taste different. And how we separate ourselves from the rest, we don't try to. We just have a compelling story. I think we tell people that, how many distilleries do you know that are family owned? How many of them do you know that haven't, or the location hasn't had one in over 110 years? I'm a veteran. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I think it's just a little Brady brother love.
It is. It's an easy story to tell.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are naturally attracted to that. They want to hear about it. If you just told them that everything that you make, there was no story to it, then you are really just the same person, another distillery doing the same thing, but that's how you separate it is the compelling story, I think, and what your processes do and how you get after that, I think, is the big thing.
Well, speaking as an expert in storytelling with magazines and, having a hook, I think that that's pretty critical and obviously a great way to have people get to know you. And in this community, especially for the Roanoke region, I mean, once you're part of this community, there's no getting out. Sorry.
That's right. I tried.
Exactly. We made you come back in.
Yeah, I'm back. So, no, and I don't think we'd have had it any other way. When my wife and I we met in the military, and when we decided to settle back in Roanoke, it made sense. Again, my brothers are here with their wives and kids. Mom and dad are still here, and they hadn't seen much of my kids because we were always gone.
Right.
We were, for 20 years we weren't here. So it made sense for us to come back, and we're glad we did.
I think that's perfect. We're glad to have you. Thank you and your wife both for your service. We are so grateful to you guys, and not just for your service, but for building community right here in our backyard. I think that's amazing. Before we go, a couple more questions. We've talked about collaboration, loving the partnerships between the distilleries and breweries and even restaurants, and thinking about, are there any partnerships that you feel particularly strong about that you really feel have enriched our local environment or our local community?
Partnerships with the distillery?
Any that you like. Yeah. I mean, I think that.
Yeah. I'd like to mention that a partnership that we have at the distillery that I think has been hard to beat is our financial partnership.
Cool.
I'm going to big shout out to Freedom First. When we decided that we were going to build the distillery, I was big banking, like most people do. They big bank, talking about like Capital One and Bank of America and things like that. And I was with USAA, right?
Me too.
many years. And I didn't have, after I retired, I wanted that personal touch. I wanted to be able to walk in and talk to somebody, sit down and establish and develop a relationship. And not only has Freedom First done that for us, but we have a relationship with them that goes beyond banking. And so when I moved back home, I began coaching my son's ball team, and I ended up running into someone who at the time I didn't know was affiliated with Freedom First. And I was talking to him about that kind of thing. I was like, I'd really like to get back into a local bank, talk to a loan officer about what I need, my needs, not just a form. Mm-hmm. And he saw an opportunity for a plug that he avoided. He really could have just been like, hey, I've got a guy, go talk to him. Instead, we continued to talk about it. And then eventually he said, you know what, let's get lunch one day. I think we can help each other out. That turned into, I think, between Brian and Andy's businesses, my personal business, the distillery, all of it being moved over to Freedom First.
From one simple conversation at your son's ball game.
Yep, that's all it took.
Man, this community.
And they have been terrific. And so the financial arm for us has been huge. Obviously, any business needs a financial partner. But what was great about Freedom First was they weren't just in it for their financial piece. They said, well, we also have all these other entities that we work on with the insurance arm and the real estate arm. And what do you guys need? Like, we'd love to see you guys grow. I think they're a good, strong, family-oriented company as well. So that to us has been huge.
I love that.
And we really appreciate it. And I mean, even to today, we still text about different things. What's going on? We get involved in. It's not even banking related. It's
yeah.
like, what are you guys doing this weekend? You want to get together for some golf?
That's awesome that they're invested in you as people and not just as a client.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Really cool. Really good shout out for them. So that's awesome. And so finally, our last question, what we ask all the guests, you and your wife, your family, your brothers, your nephews, the whole family, where are you guys when you're not at the distillery, which you're probably there like 23/7. But if you are not there, where are you guys eating, playing, going in our region? The local businesses you really just love to frequent.
Yeah. So there have been so many pop up in the last few years that my wife and I, and sometimes just enjoy wandering into places. Mm-hmm. We have an opportunity in Roanoke. It's so diverse. And so whether it's a restaurant, today I wandered into a new nursery to buy some plants. You know what I mean? Like, It was just one of those things I didn't know they existed.
Probably one of the best parts of your day.
And it was great. Yeah. I know I've got a lot of work ahead of me.
Yeah.
But, and my brother, Brian, he just opened up the Six and Sky rooftop grill.
Excellent.
And so that's a great place. We've been there several times. And, but the beer scene, the restaurant scene, Roanoke has really well-rounded itself over the last decade, very quickly, I might add. And it seemed like every time I came home, there was something new. We live out in Botetourt County, and we had some opportunities. I'm seeing some growth come out that way. So I'm hoping maybe a brewery pops out there. Would be nice. So we're not driving all the way to Roanoke. But we still love our brewery scene here. The folks at OSBC, Old Salem, Big Lick, obviously, we partner with them on a lot of things. So, and the food piece, it's just great. I don't know if we have one particular place we like to go, but when we do, we always try and bring people with us. I think that's the big thing. Hey, we're going to go back to our regular stomping ground, or it's a new place. Who wants to go with us? And we just love that. I think.
Yeah. Well, just between your family, you got a good crowd with you.
We do.
Yeah, and then you got your friends and everybody else who wants to participate.
Right. Yep.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm so glad to see, hometown heroes. They're coming. You're coming back. You're staying here in terms of your brothers and building business and giving back to the community that probably gave a lot to you growing up. So I think that's really, really special.
Yeah. I think it's always about how you can give back.
Yeah.
Paying it forward. And we try and do that every day. There's always somebody that could use a hand with something, and why not give your hand to them?
I think that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to visit Brady's Distillery, raise a glass, do a little toast to you. And so thank you, and Brian and Andy, for what you're doing. I think that's really amazing, not just for the distillery, but for the ways that you're participating in the community. So thank you.
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate
Absolutely. It. So thank you again, Tim Brady of Brady's Distillery, for being on From Print to Podcast today. If you're ready to sip and savor, you can visit Brady's Distillery at 711 Pocahontas Avenue Northeast in Roanoke, or have a peek over at bradysdistillery.com. You have to be over 21 to do that. So just make sure that you're abiding by the law that we've talked about much today. But thank you again, Tim. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And you can read our feature on Brady's Distillery and other great spots for spirits and craft beers, as well as meet your 2024 Best of Roanoke winners and so much more in our May-June issue, hitting newsstands right now, or you can head on over and read more at theroanoker.com.